Hello, I'm Lauren Love. I'm the director of Wise Women's Choice. Welcome to Costa Rica. I'm so happy to have you here today in our circle across space and time, whether you're joining live or you're getting the recording. Sharing about fertility awareness is one of my greatest joys in life because when I learned fertility awareness and when I came off hormonal birth control, I had a spiritual awakening. I came alive. I started making my art again. I started connecting to my essence, to nature. I decided to not work for anybody ever again. I moved to Costa Rica. And this is my heart and what we share with Wise Women's Choice, with what we share with fertility awareness, that that this transformation would be for every woman because we were never meant to be denatured by these ways of contraception. We were never meant to have to take serious risks with our health just to be protected from unwanted pregnancy. And my fire comes from the fact that they tried to snuff this out for centuries. They killed the wise women. They made it illegal. They tried to say that you can't practice, unregistered medicine and so many things. But the true empowerment is sharing sister to sister. And this is why I love the Women's Circle. This is why I'm so happy to share with you today. So let's get started. First of all, understanding our fertility and understanding the fertility awareness method is meant to be so much more than a charting practice, than something you throw in your app. It is a relationship with our body. It is learning to hear our body, learning to honor our body, and learning to flow with her. So keep that in mind as you embark on this practice. When you're practicing natural birth control, because there's so many ways to practice natural birth control, it is so important to begin with mental and spiritual clarity. Step one. So, our bodies and our biology is designed to want a baby, and so are our heart and souls. We were designed to be mothers, even if that's not what we feel called to in this lifetime. So many times in our journey of our childbearing years, we can be in a place where we're practicing birth control or using something, but deep down, we really want a baby. So it's so important to take some time and become clear on this. What do you really want? Do you feel like you need to prevent pregnancy because that's what's expected of you? And do you feel like maybe deep down you really do want a baby and you want to connect with this and honor that? It's whatever it is for you. So I really recommend taking time, get a journal, ask yourself, ask your partner. We have to open up to having these vulnerable conversations because for so long, or at least as long as we've been alive, the birth control has been like, oh, the woman's taking care of it. She's on the pill. Everything's good. Or the man's grabbing a condom, but there isn't a standard of open communication, of oneness in our sexual decisions, in a union between, a union of purpose where we're both understanding and deciding that together we're preventing pregnancy or we're making a baby, and trust is really the container for love. So when we cultivate this trust with our partner around our natural birth control, when we're communicating to them throughout the month where we are in our cycle, and we're playing with that energy and using it for our fullest life, it can create a lot of trust. It can create a lot of love and connection. And that's a really beautiful and really important part of fertility awareness, of natural birth control. So fertility awareness, there are several fertility awareness based methods, and I'm going to go into a couple of them. I'm going to teach you first the symptothermal method. I'm teaching this to you first. I'm sharing this first because this is the more accurate way to practice fertility awareness. This gives you the most amount of signs to understand your body, and it gives you a sign that is more scientifically proven to actually confirm ovulation. From there, we're going to go into how could we simplify this practice, because there is another official fertility awareness method, and this one is called the Billings method. And after 11 years of practice, I realized I've actually, although I'm trained in the symptothermal method, in my real life, I've been basically practicing the Billings method with a few tweaks from the symptothermal to make it more effective. These tweaks come from understanding what's going on and knowing how to work with my body, with my tools. So I'm going to share that with you because for me, the improved Billings method, let's call it, the wise woman's choice method, this is a simpler way of doing it. And it's a way that's more about our relationship with our body than charting, tracking, being so scientific. We can be clear with our body without so much detail, without, yeah, you'll see. So when we're getting to know our bodies, when we're beginning our practice of fertility awareness, we're going to begin to get to know our three primary biomarkers. So as our, first of all, when we're looking at our cycle within the frame of fertility awareness, we're looking at a cycle beginning with our bleed, not ending. From there, estrogen is rising along with other hormones until it comes to a threshold, causing the egg to come, ovulation, and then progesterone takes over. So the buildup of estrogen in our system is what gives us these clear signs that we're able to read in our body. Now, as we are looking at our cycle, we have the days of our bleed, and then every woman will have what is her very own basic infertile pattern. Pattern of what? So when we're talking about this pattern, we're talking about our cervical mucus. What's our cervical mucus? So as estrogen is rising every month, our body begins to let out, our cervix begins to open a little bit and let out what we call cervical mucus. So every woman will have a different pattern of what this looks like. It could look like blood and then maybe some dry days. A dry day is like if you were going to put your finger in your mouth. Oh, there's nothing I can rub between my fingers. It's damp because it's your yoni, but it dries up pretty fast if you were to do that in the air. These are considered dry days, and this is very important to understand and get to know what a dry day feels like for you. I live on the road, even though we're on a beautiful land as well. So excuse the cars or motorcycles. So we're getting to know our dry days. And then from there, every woman will have what we call her basic infertile pattern. Or her basic pattern. So I'm sorry, it's not infertile. As soon as we start releasing cervical mucus, we become fertile, basically. So it could look like sticky gummy, which is actually classified as less fertile. And then as it's becoming wet, as soon as you have what's qualified as like wet cervical fluid, then we're becoming fertile. So wet cervical fluid looks like creamy lotiony, might be white. It can become watery and totally clear. And as we're getting closer and closer to ovulation, it's going to look more like a stretchy egg white. You can stretch it between your fingers. There's going to be more and more of it until we come to a point in our cycle where even when we wipe, we're wet. We just have so much juiciness. And then after that, it will abruptly dry up. So you're checking yourself every day with clean hands. You put your finger inside, swipe around. We're going to get into reading our cervix and getting to know her. But when you're looking for cervical mucus, are you getting anything on your fingers? Can you stretch it? What does it look like? Get to know it. So then once we have a lot of it one day, like I said, it's wet even when you're wiping. The next day, it can abruptly dry up. So you're back to this. And then you're looking for this to stay dry for 4 consecutive days. Because on the 4th night for the rest of the month, you are considered safe for unprotected intercourse. You are no longer fertile. So why are we considered fertile when we have cervical mucus? Well, this is because the cervical mucus lowers the pH of the yoni environment, allowing sperm to live. Because if you're in a dry environment, the yoni of the vagina is very acidic, and this acidic environment will kill sperm quite fast. Now, as we begin to release this cervical mucus, it makes the pH more neutral, which allows the sperm to survive. It also, as it becomes more and more watery, it's creating literal highways for the sperm to travel on, to go up through the door of the cervix, into the womb, all the way to the fallopian tubes where an egg is actually fertilized. So we need these highways and we need this environment in which sperm can live. And when we have that, sperm can survive inside of us for up to around 5 days. So that's why even if we're a little bit after our moon and we're starting to have this fluid, even though we have not actually ovulated yet, we must consider ourselves fertile because sperm could live inside of you for some days until the egg would be released and then you get pregnant. So that's how that's working. Now, the second sign we're looking at when we check inside of us every day with clean hands is our cervix. So many of us have never even felt our cervix or thought about doing so. It's crazy. I hadn't. And once I got to know her, I was actually angry after I practiced this for a couple of months, observing my signs, because I was like, wow, this isn't like ambiguous. Am I fertile? Am I not? It's crystal clear. And how did nobody ever teach me this? And how have I also been living under the mentality that natural birth control doesn't work? You just can't know. Like it's because it's actually crystal clear once you get to know these signs. It's insane. So when you're feeling your cervix, especially if this is your first time, so when you put your finger in, it's gonna feel like a nub at the back of your yoni. So this is the door that the babies come through. It is a pleasure spot in our bodies with tons of nerve endings connected to the vagus nerve, can create really profound experiences for us as we get to know her more. And it's also connected in Chinese medicine, interestingly enough, to our hearts. So it's a beautiful place to get to know, get to be familiar with, and to talk to every day, basically. And when I'm doing fertility awareness, I'm speaking with my womb. And so when we're not fertile, generally menstruation and just following those dry days, our cervix is going to be low, which means it's really going to be easy to touch. It's going to be firm, like the tip of our nose. It's going to be closed. So if you haven't had a baby, it'll feel like a slit. And if you have had a baby, it'll feel like just a little hole. And it's going to be softer. It becomes, so it's, when you're infertile, it's low and closed and firm and dry. Like there's none of this fluid, none of this cervical mucus on it. Now, as we're approaching ovulation, we're becoming fertile, our cervix transforms completely. So our cervix goes from being low and closed and firm and dry to rising up in the yoni, going high and becoming soft, like if you were to touch your lips. It's becoming open to where you could kind of put your finger in it. And it's becoming wet to where you have cervical mucus on it that you can rub between your fingers. So this is showing us that the door is literally opening and softening to allow sperm to pass through. When you really understand why your body's doing what it's doing, it makes it that much easier to be in touch with, to connect with, to understand, and to work with. So does that make sense? I hope so. So we're looking at our cervical mucus, our cervical position and quality, and then we're looking in the symptothermal method at what's called our basal body temperature. So our basal body temperature, you need to take around the same time every day. We take our basal body temperature before we got on the phone, before we had any big conversations, before the bathroom. We take it around the same time, and we do it before we do anything else, and we record it in an app or in a fertility journal or a chart, whatever you choose to use. It's very dangerous to practice this and not record because thinking that you'll remember any of these signs, oh, my cervix was high and wet the other day, like it's so easily lost if you don't write it down. And it's so incredibly valuable once you do have these things written down for you to refer to. Oh, wow, I'm feeling really emotional. Where am I in my cycle? Oh, wow, I'm feeling really horny. Where am I in my cycle? You know, and looking back. And I've even started recording in my fertility journal what I'm eating and my emotional state. Today I feel awesome and life is beautiful. Today I feel depressed, or do I feel whatever, stress, whatever. And a little bit about what I'm eating so I can see, like, do I feel shitty because I didn't eat well? You know, do I feel tired because I didn't eat well? Or is it because I'm right before my period? Starting to really get in touch with what's going on with me. So you're recording your temperature every morning, and we don't really pay attention to our temperatures during our period because our body's temperature is already elevated during that time. So just like if you were going to take birth control pills, like you could continue temping, but we're not paying to stay in the habit, but we're not paying attention to those temperatures actually at the end of the day. What we are paying attention to are the 6 temperatures after our period. We're looking for the highest temperature from those 6 temperatures to shift and spike. This spike is like 0.2 to 0.5 degrees in Celsius or 0.4 to 1 degrees Fahrenheit. So when we see this shift, this is showing us that we ovulated, and we're looking for it to shift and spike and stay up for 3 consecutive days. Now, if we were to chart it, we would have all these lower temperatures here. And then when it spikes up here, we'd have like dots. When it spikes here, you draw what's called a cover line between them. So we want these high temperatures to stay above the cover line for 3 consecutive days. And then the night of the 3rd consecutive day, you're free for unprotected intercourse for the whole rest of the month. Because when we ovulate, this egg is viable for 24 hours only. It disintegrates. Now, we're counting some days after we've seen these signs pass because in the case of twins or triplets, sometimes throughout our life, we may release 2 or 3 eggs. So these are extra precautionary days to make sure that even if that happens, that we're still protected. So okay, we have these signs. We're recording them. We're getting to know our bodies. And then what? So along with the signs of fertility awareness, we have 4 simple rules to follow, okay? The first one is called the first 5-day rule. This says that you are safe for unprotected intercourse the first 5 days of your bleed. This is only valid if you had a temperature spike indicating ovulation the month before, and it's only valid if your cycle is 26 days or longer. If your cycle is shorter than 26 days, you're technically only safe the first 3 days of your period for unprotected sex, and not even if you didn't have your temperature shift the month before, is what the method teaches. So that's the first rule. I will iterate that you can absolutely get pregnant on your period. I have women tell me they got pregnant on their period all the time. And it happened to me when I was just starting to practice natural birth control, fertility awareness, which at the time meant like, oh, I think I know when I'm fertile. And I wasn't paying attention. I wasn't following the rules. And we made love on the 6th day of my period, a very light flow, and we got pregnant. So this was breaking the first rule. Obviously, it wasn't the fertility awareness method that didn't work, but my very loose handling of it. So from there, I went on to get professional education in fertility awareness and learn all the tools that I could use instead of abstinence or condoms. So yeah, I've learned a lot over the years, but we did get pregnant with it before. And that's why it's so important when you're practicing fertility awareness to make sure that you chart for some months and feel totally clear and confident on what you're doing before you really rely on this for birth control. And it's also important that you recognize within yourself, am I responsible enough to actually do this? Am I responsible enough to actually follow the rules when I really want to do something else or whatever? So yeah, sit with yourself and figure that out so you can know if this is actually the right path for you. But regardless of if you use fertility awareness for birth control, it can really up-level your life. 1, having a relationship with your body. 2, understanding where you are in your cycle. 3, feeling empowered, knowing when you're fertile and when you're not, so that you don't have to be scared. You know, there's so many nuances to understanding your fertility that can be used with a natural birth control practice. So it's huge. It's huge. So we have the first 5-day rule. Then we have the dry day rule, which is what we talked about. Anytime you are dry after your moon, even though you're leading up to ovulation, you're considered safe at 6 p.m. for unprotected intercourse. So the 6 p.m. thing, I've always thought was weird. But the reason for it is because they think that, you know, if you give it all day, that gives it time that it would run out of you if you were to have this fluid. And so you can know. But taking control of your fertility, which is like my Bible, the woman who wrote that says that, you know, fertility awareness can actually be even more effective if women would just check their cervix before sex. If your cervix is low and closed and dry and firm, you're like very protected. So on these dry days, I would just go beyond checking just the dryness, check actually your cervix. Is your cervix opening up and just hasn't left any fluid yet? Or is it low and closed? The door is closed. Because if it is, that's your body saying you're good to go for unprotected intercourse. And this is essentially a hack for the whole entire method. You check yourself before intercourse. Is my cervix high or low? Is it closed or open? Is it wet or dry? And do I have cervical mucus? That really tells you everything you need to know. So if you live in a way in touch with your body, keeping this in mind, it can really be this simple. I'm not joking. You need to record. It's vital to know where you're at, but you can always go back to this simple reading. You're taking a reading. So that's the dry day rule. You're safe for unprotected intercourse on the evenings of your dry days. And then after you've had your day of lots of fluid, which we call your peak day, and you go back into having dry days, you have your 4 consecutive dry days, you are safe for unprotected intercourse the night of the 4th dry day and beyond. So not every dry day, just following your peak day, only from the 4th on. Okay, and then we have your peak day rule. So what we were just talking about, your peak day, that's essentially it, what I just explained. You have your peak day, lots of fluid, even when you wipe, it's wet. The next day you dry up, so then you're counting 4 consecutive dry days. What happens if you have 2 dry days and then it's wet again? You have to start the count again, starting with your first dry day. It's that simple. And then we have our temperature shift rule. So like I said, we're looking for the temperature to shift and then stay above this cover line for 3 consecutive days. Stay elevated. What happens if it goes up and then it goes down again right after? You have to again wait for the temperature shift and then watch it stay up for 3 consecutive days. And then the night of the 3rd consecutive day, you're safe for unprotected intercourse for the rest of the cycle. So what if you are safe 4 days earlier, a few days earlier with the peak day rule and not with the temperature rule, or vice versa? Most of the time they will sync up almost perfectly. Sometimes they're off. What do you rely on? The safer sign of these to rely on is your temperature shift, because your temperature shift is the only one of these 3 signs that is for sure telling you did in fact ovulate. The cervical fluid and cervical shifts could be the building up of estrogen in your body, but not necessarily indicate that the estrogen built up enough to break this threshold and cause ovulation. So you could still have the mucus, you could still have your cervix opening and not have actually reached the place of ovulation. So this happens with women who are experiencing infertility. This happens with women who are in like premenopause. Many times our bodies are building up the estrogen, not actually ovulating, and so on. And same with, postpartum times. It can look like this also as your body's trying to begin ovulation again. You can have several patches of fertile cervical fluid showing you, oh, look, I'm going to ovulate. And then without your temperature, you don't know if you fully ovulated. So this is how to be the safest you can be using the symptothermal method. So why am I even going to go into another method? Well, I'm kind of like the woman in the community / world that everybody comes to with their fertility stories, their experiences, what they're doing for birth control, and I love it. But one thing that I've realized from my own experience and the experience of all these sisters that come to me is that I have literally never met one woman in my whole life who actually does the temperature, including myself. I'm like ADD, I'm an artist, I'm a mom, I'm not that great at routine. I'm getting better at discipline, but taking my temperature first thing, I don't always wake up at the same time, and it's just never been something I was able to integrate. And so I was really excited to hear that this Billings method is actually like 99% effective as well. So I'm like, well, great. Why not do the simpler one? But like I said, I'm going to share with you a few things, simple things to have in mind that kind of improve on this method to make it the most effective it can be for you. So So yeah, like imagine your life not taking your temperature every day, but just remembering once or twice a day when you go to the bathroom to just check inside you and know what's going on and record it somewhere. I've been doing apps forever with my fertility, and lately I've been doing a journal and I'm really enjoying it. I'm really enjoying it because one, it's not on my phone, and I'm so tired of being on my phone all the time. Oh, and two, it feels like more of a relationship with myself where I'm like journaling a bit. Like I said, what did I eat? How am I feeling? Did I make love? What did we use? You know, a little bit about my process. And this is just like helping me to tune into myself in a really deeper way than just putting my things in the app and then being able to look at it really easily. That's cool. But I really invite you to consider having a special fertility journal. Um, yeah, I'm working on creating one for us, but until then, any notebook will do. But this could really be a sacred place for connection with yourself in a deeper way than maybe you've experienced before, and it's been really profound for me. So, okay, the Billings method, like I said, it's over 99% effective if you do it right. Um, and this method is instead of looking at all your signs, you're just observing what's going on with your yoni. And it says you don't even need to put your finger in, just when you wipe, what do you see? You see like some creamy lotiony, you see some sticky gummies, some egg white. What do you see? What's the sensation? Is it wet, really slippery when you wipe? And they're saying this is really enough to let you know what's going on. I really love to use my cervix too and to put my finger inside to see how things are. It's a way of being in touch with myself that I really treasure. I feel like for sure it would give you more clarity as well than just what you wipe, but the method itself is saying check out what you wipe. Okay, so that's it. You're looking at if you have fertile cervical mucus or not. And the rules are slightly different. So they say to avoid sex on heavy bleed days, but then on light days, if you can tell it's just period blood and it's not mucusy, then you're good. Now, I wouldn't mess around with that. I wouldn't mess around with that at all. I would just use another form of natural protection, which we're going to get into on your period. One, because I did get pregnant on my period. Yeah, and it was just period blood and there wasn't mucus. And so that tells me, okay, my body started producing mucus not too long after to let the sperm survive. And I just think it's too ambiguous with the blood. But once you get to know your body really well, you can make that decision for yourself. If you feel comfortable having unprotected intercourse on your lighter days, if it's just period blood and no mucus, it's not mucusy. So you're gonna have to maybe get to know your fluids a little bit better to be able to distinguish that. Okay, dry days, you're safe at night, leading up to ovulation, just like the other method. You're fertile any day of blood or discharge. So like as you have any kind of mucus or any spotting during the month. Spotting in both methods is considered fertile. Um, and so yeah, when you have this fluid that sperm could technically survive in, you're fertile in both ways. And then it's basically saying because we're only basing this method on, you know, how we wipe and what that feels like, the cervical mucus, once that's dried up, we're counting 3 days, they say. 3 days of dry, and on the fourth day, on the night, just like the other method, from there on out, you're good for the rest of the month for unprotected sex. Unprotected sex. So, so do you see how simple that can be? You see how just knowing, like, okay, I have my moon, I have my dry days that I can party on, I can have unprotected sex. I've got my wet days that I need to use something. And then once I dry up and count 4 days, for the rest of the month, I'm good. It's that simple. So the crazy thing about all of this that I would like to point out, because it's so important, is that, you know, women are coming off birth control now and they're looking for a better way. And it's all fertility awareness, fertility awareness. Well, that's cool. But the fertility awareness method, both of these methods, the Billings method is like, you have to be abstinent when you're fertile. We don't support the use of condoms or anything else because the method's 99% effective. And as soon as you throw in condoms or another method, diaphragm spermicide, wise woman's choice, neem oil, which I'm going to get into those options, the method only becomes as effective as the thing you're using when you're fertile, which for me and my philosophy, that's the actual birth control. Fertility awareness is just that, the awareness of when you're fertile and when you're not. But the birth control is what we're using when we are fertile to stay protected. So, so like I said, as soon as you're using a condom, your method, you might be thinking it's 99%, it's fertility awareness. No, your method is now 87% effective, which is the efficacy of condoms, according to the CDC. That means 13 out of every 100 women will become pregnant in the first year using condoms. So, especially because if we do choose to use condoms in this practice, we're doing so when we are fertile. And so if something happens, you can very easily get pregnant. So, so yeah, you have to really consider what's the best choice for you when you're fertile. For me, it's never sat with me very well. Like, just be abstinent when you're fertile. That's your horniest time. That's when your whole being wants to make love because you're ovulating. Um, So I always thought that was kind of bullshit. But then they say, or use a barrier method, which has always been told, like, use a condom, stay safe, you know? And the irony is that conventional condoms have class 1 carcinogens in them that are released in us through exposure to heat and bodily fluids. So this is not a safe option for me. But there are cleaner condom brands you can find, absolutely. So if you are going to go that route, but I will just say they are not highly effective. Like, they're brainwashed us to be like that they're so safe. It's not. Um, there's the diaphragm spermicide option. Well, spermicides, and the whole time I was using condoms in my 20s, I was always like with the spermicide, even like pill, condom, spermicide, pulling out prayers, like, because I was terrified of getting pregnant and I thought I could get pregnant anytime I had sex. I didn't know, and I had no idea that spermicides are also toxic. And not only that, but when you're using a condom, it's usually for STD protection as well, no? So if you're using with a spermicide thinking you're being extra safe, no, because it has a chemical in it, a toxic, highly toxic chemical called non-oxyl 9. Non-oxyl 9 irritates our tissues. That's why we feel irritated when we use a spermicide with a condom. And it makes us more susceptible because of this irritation to contracting viruses or sexually transmitted infections. So also using a diaphragm, like, this is not a very popular method, but some people do it. Now, this is covering the cervix, which, like we talked about, our cervix is innervated, is connected to the vagus nerve, and is energetically connected to the heart. So when we're doing this with a diaphragm, for me, it's just another way of shutting down our sexual potential, shutting down our potential for connection, to use a rubber barrier when we're making love, for me, just doesn't equate, because we're electrical beings sharing an electrical experience, a collective flow together that we're cultivating with our intimacy. So as soon as you put rubber in between you, something like this, or silicone, these are a barrier to electricity. It's cutting off the connection. And this is something I think we've always known, because every person I talk to about their experience with condoms is like, yeah, they're disgusting. Yeah, it always felt like something wasn't right about this. And I think because maybe maybe there's a time and place for condoms, but maybe there's not, maybe it's trash. I don't know. Um, but that's my own personal soapbox. So if you love condoms, go for it. Um, okay, so what are we using when we're fertile, especially if we don't want to use condoms, don't want to use a diaphragm, don't want to use a spermicide, because you have to use a spermicide with a diaphragm. What do we use? What's natural? What can we use? What's effective? So we have a couple really amazing options. So I'll just share personally. Once I decided I didn't want to use condoms anymore, and I realized there were some natural ways, my partner and I began being co-creative with our birth control. So when I was fertile, I would let him know, and he would retain his semen or pull out, but generally he would just not ejaculate. And then I would put neem oil right afterwards, because neem oil, this is one of our options, is natural. You can get it organic. It's antifungal, antimicrobial, antiviral, all the things. It feels great inside, and it's killing 100% of the sperm in like 20 to 30 seconds. So this is phenomenal. And I really liked it. It felt good with my body. but it has like a really strong smell. And for me, it's such a turn off that I was never able to convince myself to put it in before making love. So I'd always put it right after, but he wasn't finishing inside of me. So it worked for years. And this was my practice, and I felt really protected, really free. We never had a pregnancy scare like this. And however, like I said, everybody comes to me with their fertility stories, and I know two people just in my community here that got pregnant putting neem oil right after intercourse. So that's the thing. It smells so strong, most people don't want to put it before. And so when I found out about other options that didn't have a smell, I was like, yes, this will give me so much more peace of mind to be able to put something ahead of time instead of after the event. So, um, so yeah, there is a neem brand that I really like, a product made from neem. It's called See the Secret, and you're welcome to get my natural birth control guide that goes along for a review of this, along with some information maybe on other tools that I can share with you. But I'll leave like a coupon code is in there for you if you're interested in trying out this neem-based product. And then there's Wise. So Wise Woman's Choice, this is my company along with my husband. I started working with Wise around 5 years ago. I had just begun teaching fertility awareness and natural birth control tools in women's circles and communities. I made an online course, which was what I was sharing. And I was like one day feeling kind of sorry for myself, looking online, like, do I even have competition? You know, this was like 2020 COVID time, and I happened on this cream. And there was this like old lady scientist talking, super old, saying it was like 100% effective. I was like, how can it be? But I saw how this cream worked to mobilize a sperm in a lab test on the website, and I was like, okay, I want it. I'm gonna try it. It had no smell, no hormones, all made from plants and minerals. I was like, no way. So I immediately got in touch with this doctor who happened to be in her 90s. She was a Holocaust survivor, Dr. Francoise Farron. She spent her whole career at Harvard and had her doctorate and undergrad at NYU in Berkeley. So she was the real deal. So she invented this cream, and it used to be known as Smart Woman's Choice since 2014. And this cream has served tens of thousands of women. It's made from all pure plant extracts and organic minerals. And she was working through the States and had a younger woman kind of help her run it. And this younger woman, according to Dr. Francois, kind of stole the company. So she got in a lawsuit with her. And when I came back to Dr. Francois to see if I could get more cream to sell, because I got a bunch from her right away. So I got a bunch from her right away. I started using it, sharing it with my women's circles and communities. Everybody happy, nobody pregnant. Like, it's amazing. So I went to get more. And she was like, you can get more, but you're gonna have to make it yourself, and explain to me what had happened. So I immediately flew to San Diego, met with her in her old folks' home when she was 99 at the time, and she passed the formula to me along with permission to rebrand and produce it here in Costa Rica. My partner just happens to be a brilliant chemist with plenty of experience in creating natural medicines. And so we've teamed up to bring Wise Women's Choice to the world. And the crazy thing is that the FDA shut down Smart Women's Choice. And on my birthday a couple of years ago, we found out they were sending all of their orders to us. So we've been serving this clientele for years and growing all around the world. It's a movement, it's a revolution, and we're so passionate about sharing education, not just the cream, because the cream is the birth control. The cream is the actual tool that you can use when you're pregnant or when you're fertile to not get pregnant. Excuse me. And it's 99% effective. Smart Women's Choice is claiming it was even higher effective than that. But since we've been producing it for a couple years and sold over 1,000 units, based on the client feedback from what people have told us, we've had about a 1% in pregnancy. And that's actually like phenomenal because birth control pills have like a 7 to 9% failure rate, and condoms 13. So 1% is pretty phenomenal, especially considering people use it however they use it. This is with general use. So the cream's available online. And it's at wisewomenschoice.com. And if you have any other questions about these things, please reach out, get in touch with me. Um, so yeah, you have neem oil, you can pair it with semen retention, Wise Woman's Choice. With either of these things, if you put neem oil or the cream in before the big event, right before penetration, your partner can finish inside of you because they're both really like stopping the sperm really well. So it depends. If you're more comfortable that when you're very fertile, your partner doesn't finish inside of you, that's an extra layer of protection. Like it just is. And I know that like now I'm 40 and I feel much more open about like, not being as tight about if I get pregnant or not because I'm in a loving relationship, because I'm in a, I would be happy to welcome another baby. That's where I'm at. In my 20s, I would have been extra careful doing everything I can, all the tools I have, which at the time I was using all the tools I thought I had that were messing up my health. But in the sense of natural birth control, you can do the same. You can do the same by checking your cervix and your cervical mucus right before you make love. You will have a clear reading on whether or not you're fertile. By perhaps pairing neem oil or wise woman's choice with semen retention, not that you have to, but if you're terrified of getting pregnant still, you can give that added layer of protection, and that can give you the peace of mind you need. It's whatever you need to honor what you need for your peace of mind, for where you're at. Um, it's all about honoring ourselves now. It's not about outsourcing or medicalizing our wombs or our fertility. It's all about, how do I honor myself the most? Do I feel most honored just using, wise woman's choice, not worrying about my fertility because this is what works best for my life? Do I feel most honored using neem oil, that feels good and is supernatural? Do I feel best like having my partner not finish inside of me when I'm fertile also? That gives me extra peace of mind, like really ask yourself, how do I want to truly honor myself, my fertility? What does that look like for me? Because it's not a one size fits all. It's really, you can really craft your personal birth control practice along with your partner, and then it's yours, and you know what layers of protection you want to use for your peace of mind, body, soul, right? So yeah, I normally share this in a women's circle along with so many more natural birth control tools that we go into depth, how to use them, when to use them. We talk about nature's plan B, we talk about wise women herbs, we go deeper into the practice of semen retention. We talk about how to bring on a bleed and essentially terminate a very early pregnancy naturally. We talk about these mental spiritual aspects, the relationship aspects, and also I like to go into like how to heal after birth control, because when our hormones have been off for 5, 10 years, 1 year even, coming back can be a process that we can really support. And so I'm going to be leading a training in the next couple months. If you feel called that you want to share these things in your community, that you want to be the one carrying this wisdom, that you would love to lead women's circles or speak at festivals or to communities or teach teenage girls or whatever it is that you feel called to carry this wisdom with you, reach out, because we have a really exciting certification coming up to become a certified wise women's choice wisdom carrier. And I couldn't be more excited about this because this is the revolution. Women sharing the wisdom in their own communities and empowering others to share the wisdom and share, until no longer do we have millions of women around the world suffering depression, polluting the water supply with hormones, becoming suicidal, dying of heart attacks from their birth control. We're healing this through education. We're healing this through rising up and being the lighthouse in our town to hold the wombs of our community, the fertility of our community, protecting it, supporting it, empowering young women, empowering women of childbearing age to take control of their fertility, to become the sovereign gatekeeper of their womb, to step into this role where it's no longer medicalized outsourcing with a myriad of side effects that can kill you, but it's total empowerment, total womb sovereignty. So if you want to be that light, that wisdom carrier, if this is part of your calling and what you feel like is your purpose on this earth, please connect, because it's coming up soon in the next months. I can't wait to share more about it. And thank you so much for being here today. If you'd like a guide for this class, just shoot me an email asking for the guide and I'll send it right over. And blessings to you, your womb, your family, your heart, and your life. You are beautiful, you are loved, you are wise.